Formula One on 5 Live.
Good evening and welcome to the city that never sleeps. It's Las Vegas, it's round 22 and it's crunch time for the 2025 Formula One World Championship. Lando Norris sits at the top of the standings with a 24-point advantage over teammate Oscar Piastri as we arrive at a cold and challenging street circuit where Formula One cars run alongside and in the shadow of some of the world's greatest landmarks, from the Paris hotels, Eiffel Tower to the fountains of the Bellagio, speeding by at over 200 miles per hour. We're ready for qualifying, but is the track? It's Harry Benjamin with you in commentary, and it is pouring with rain. So whilst I'm safely undercover, let's head out to Rosanna Tennant, who's risking the elements for us. Good evening, Rosanna.
No risk, no reward, Harry. You're right, it is really raining now. At the end of FP3, there were just a few little raindrops here and there, but since then, the rain has been coming down thick and fast, and it is still falling now. And looking at the weather radar, it's going to stick around for about 3/4 of an hour. So get ready, we're going to have a wet qualifying session in Vegas. It is going to be treacherous. I just saw Alex Albon and I said to him, do you like this? And he said, no, and not in our car. So I think there are going to be some drivers a little bit worried about how this session is going to unfold.
Yeah, I had the exact same conversation with Haas as well, and I think that may well be repeated up and down the grid, as you say, Rosanna. But we are not alone. Up in the commentary box with myself is racing driver Alice Powell and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. I mean, Alice, after free practice 3 earlier in the day, I think we kind of all collectively got to the end of that session without really having an idea of where the competitive order was. Add rain into the mix, and I think we've got a bit of carnage coming.
I think we're going to have some big surprises in order for this qualifying session, and this is the wettest that we've seen the track. F1 Academy were out about 35-40 minutes ago, and I popped over quickly to speak to some of the drivers down there who've had their race. Okay, they're in F1 Academy cars, a lot slower, less downforce, etc, etc. However, they said it is like no other circuit they have driven in the wet. They said the white lines, they said the black burnt out lines, they said just the track in general, they said so dirty, so slippy, and actually all the cars came back in from the race looked like they'd been through off-roading somewhere. They were really dirty, and we spoke about this in our coverage in free practice 3, how dirty it is here, and yeah, it is slippy, and that was evident in free practice 3. So tough job for the drivers coming up.
Well, we await the green light to come on at the end of the pit lane to get Q1 underway. 1 minute and 50 as Lando Norris sits in the cockpit of his McLaren, gets some final words and a handshake from Zak Brown, the CEO of McLaren. And Andrew, there is a lot to lose for Lando Norris. He's sitting pretty at the top of the standings by 24 points, but it's conditions like this that suddenly risk versus reward very much comes into your frame of mind.
Absolutely. I mean, it seems like forever ago now, but the press conference on Wednesday with the drivers, everyone had seen the weather forecast. Fernando Alonso was asked what would this place be like in the rain. He said not fun at all. Visibility is going to be a challenge. It's fast. The grip level's very low already on dry tyres. So it could be fun to watch, but not to drive. I think we could be in for a long one here.
Oh, no.
Someone is going to stack it, and I think they're going to do it quite soon.
I've bought some snacks. We've got bottles of water, fizzy drinks. So fill your boots, guys.
Can I put my cappuccino water in now, or?
I don't like coffee, and I wouldn't know how to make a cappuccino, so don't ask me.
Yeah, it's worth saying, you know, the strip is the sort of centre point of this race. It's why this race exists. They got this Grand Prix to run down one of the most famous roads in the world, one of the most spectacular vistas in the world with all the casino hotels and the lights and everything. But the cars are going at well over 200 miles an hour down there, even in the wet, of course. The walls are close. The rest of the corners are not quick here, but the rest of the track is quick. There are bits where it's flat out in theory. Well, it's flat out in the dry for sure. May not be flat out in the wet. Kinks. I mean, this could be carnage.
Don't go anywhere. Q1 is 5 seconds away, and yes, I know the Ashes is over on 5 Sports Extra, but you've got to stick with us at least for the start of Q1. You can get live updates of the Ashes on the BBC Sport website, and if you really do want to go over, it is on Sports Extra. But we are underway. 17 minutes and 49 seconds on the clock. Q1 is a go, and there is already a queue in the pit lane, and Alex Albon nearly T-boning the Ferrari ahead of him as they all try and pile into the fast lane, but Alex Albon has to give way to the Ferrari ahead. I mean, Alex, talk us through this track as Fernando Alonso is at the head of the queue and the first to embrace these conditions. It's a tricky start. You go into a hairpin, it curves left then right, and the car for Alonso with Stroll behind him as well, slipping and sliding as they head to that first straight down towards a 90-degree right-hander.
You've got long straights, you've got heavy braking zones, combined braking zones, and what I mean by that is you've got some lock-on as you're braking, which makes them even trickier, prone to lock-ups. But add in, here from Norris.
Keep an eye on the Astons then, with onboards and stuff. I think the wet could work pretty well, especially at the beginning.
So what he's referring to there, I'm assuming, is they are on the full wets. So he's saying keep an eye on what it looks like. How do they look like they've got more grip than us? And there is quite a lot of standing water here. And one thing to also note is when about 5 minutes before the session started, it was just over 12 degrees air temp. It is now less than 12 degrees, 11.7 degrees, track temp 12 degrees. We don't race anywhere, even at Silverstone. It doesn't get this low. It was quite nice at Silverstone. We had a bit of rain, of course, but temperatures were certainly higher than this. And that makes it even harder, Harry, to generate that tyre temperature.
Slowest 5 drivers will be eliminated at the end of the next 16 minutes, which is when the rain is anticipated to end. But it's all well and good the rain stopping. It then becomes the track drying as we hear the sounds of Fernando Alonso on the full wet, as many other drivers who've gone out there on the intermediates now changing their mind, wanting to go on the intermediate from the intermediate to the full wet. Oscar Piastri is only just teetering out. He looked like it was a bit of a last-minute change for Oscar Piastri, who's now gone onto the full wet. Norris is out there on the intermediate tyres. So here we go then. Fernando Alonso is going to be the first of them to embrace these conditions at qualifying speeds as he slams on the brakes for the right-hander of turn 5, a 90-degree right-hander. Gently applies the throttle, and even a gentle application sends the rear of that green Aston Martin car slightly sideways as he teeters left through the left-hand curve of 7 with the sphere overlooking this section of the track. We've got a yellow flag out into the circuit as well. Not sure who that is yet. It's coming into turn 14 at the end of the strip. Someone may well have cut the corner because the yellow flag has gone away. But Alonso teetering round, Stroll behind him, quicker through the first sector.
The rain is still coming down. It's said it's going to stop in about 10 to 15 minutes time, but I think the full wet is the best option here because there is a lot of standing water out there. I'm amazed with the amount, and we've got another yellow flag out there. Unsure as that may be Verstappen. He was moving quite slowly in the final sector of the lap, but Lance Stroll, he's finding life quite comfortable at the moment. He's purple in the first and middle sector.
You know what, it's actually these kind of conditions where Lance Stroll actually tends to come alive a little bit in an Aston Martin. So Stroll might be one to watch here as Fernando Alonso tries to get it slowed down after the end of the strip into 14, 15 and 16. It's a quick left, right, left. It spits you out onto Harman Avenue just under a kilometre distance before you get to what would be, in full dry conditions, a flat-out left-hander past our commentary box, the left-hand bend of turn 17 that brings you back onto the start-finish straight. Fernando Alonso survives a lap around Las Vegas and goes to the top with a 2:03.249. Stroll was quicker in the first and second sectors, but actually ends up behind him by 1.5 seconds. So I wonder if Stroll had an issue in that final sector. This is the sound of Lando Norris, who is out there on the intermediate tyres running deep, and we can see, I think that's a Red Bull, wasn't it? That was also off in the runoff area.
Yeah, complaining. Can't keep it on the track.
Well,
That's
he
better
went
than I
up
was
under
saying
the
about
yellow
aquaplaning.
flag, so that might be a slap on the wrist there. But more and more drivers are opting to switch to the full wets, which I think is the right decision. Lando was on the intermediate tyres when he went out there.
And I think this just shows how unusual the conditions are on this track, Alice, because the drivers normally hate the full wet tyre. It's normally not got the performance of the intermediate, and it's not, I mean, okay, it's raining, but it's not as wet as it can sometimes be. The fact that the intermediate is struggling so much just goes to show just how slippery this track is, and that you need that extra treaded, the depth of the groove on the full wet to get some grip.
And we were just riding on board with Max Verstappen there, who was out on the intermediate tyre, and it looked like he was driving on ice, because he tried to turn in to turn 14 and physically couldn't. So yeah, I would definitely say those that have opted to go out on the wet tyre, they've made that decision. And critically, I know they have tyre warmers, but as soon as they take them off and drive onto this cold surface, they're instantly losing tyre temperature. So for a likes of Alonso, Stroll, that have been out on that wet tyre from the very, very start, they're not going to wear massively here. It's not an abrasive surface. They're going to keep generating that tyre temperature, which is going to prove critical. But one thing is you need clear track, Harry, because, well, we could barely see which cars were coming down that Las Vegas strip. There's a lot of spray out there.
Yeah, the visibility as well, particularly around a street track where it gets funneled into these tight corners and short and incredibly long straights that make up what is just over 6.2 kilometres in length, 3.8 miles, 17 turns, 11 to the left and 6 to the right. Stroll, quickest at the moment with a 2:0.67, nearly 7/10 ahead of Alonso. Everybody has now switched onto the full wet tyre. So they are all going on to that full wet, the blue-walled rubber with the thickest tread, as Ollie Bearman makes his way bumping down the long Las Vegas strip towards turn 14.
And the two Aston Martin drivers improved their times by 3 seconds on that second lap that they did on the tyres. That just goes to show how much the drivers need to build their confidence in these conditions that they've never ever experienced before on this Las Vegas strip track.
Yeah, confidence, tyre temperature. The more tyre temperature, the more confidence you're going to have. So could have been a very, very good, well, I think it will lead to be a very good call by Aston Martin to send their drivers out straight away on that full wet tyre. Gasly's done a good job, because he went out on the intermediate and then was called into box, and he's instantly jumped up to P3, fastest of anyone in the last sector, so he's clearly feeling comfortable in these conditions in his Alpine as well.
There's something about Pierre Gasly on this track. He's qualified 4th and 3rd here in the 2 races so far, and his car has very much not been competitive in either of those years. So I don't know what it is about these corners and these straights that helps the Frenchman, but he's been strong all weekend, to be fair, and the times are beginning to tumble, but there's still a big gap between Stroll and Alonso in the Aston Martins and everybody else.
One thing that we talked about in free practice 3 that we're probably not going to see is people trying to grab a toe, because you won't be able to see where you're going.
These are incredibly tricky conditions here in Las Vegas. The track illuminated by floodlights and the Neon City. Stroll, quickest with 9.5 minutes left on the clock. Piastri is down in 13th without a competitive lap time. This is the sound of him just trying to find a little bit of space on track. Everybody is out there on track right now. All 20 cars. The slowest 5 will be eliminated. So everyone down from 16th to 20th place, which at the moment, with no time on the board, is Max Verstappen, Alex Albon, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. This could be the night for an upset. This could be the night for a strong result for those at the back or in the mid-pack, as Ollie Bearman bounces along the long Las Vegas strip. Brakes for turn 14, fastest in the middle sector, fastest in the first sector is Alonso, fastest in the final sector is George Russell.
Yeah, we all love an unexpected pole, and as you said, Harry, it could be favour those slightly further down, and looking good for Gasly. Bearman looking comfortable there, shoots to the top of the times, 1:59.0, over a second quicker than Stroll. That's quickly snatched away. A first driver into the 1:58s for Gasly. Yellow flag out on track, down in turn 14. I would have thought someone's hit the brakes, tried to turn around. This is where Charles Leclerc is coming into now. And if the yellow flag is still out, which it is...
Oh, and he locks up as well and can't get it turned in. The yellow flag stays out for Charles Leclerc, who runs deep, rejoins the track. That lap in the bin for the Monegasque. I mean, if the conditions stay like this, it could well be last car over the line as the yellow flag comes out again and briefly goes back. Gasly's now quickest. Let's head down to the paddock. Rosanna, what can you tell us about the conditions where you are?
The rain is definitely getting lighter, much better, but of course so much has fallen that it's so wet underfoot. Here in the paddock it's so slippery and greasy, but it is at least easing off a little bit, but that will mean nothing for the drivers out on track who are navigating huge puddles of water.
Another yellow flag out, but I think that's going to be a common occurrence. At the moment, it's just drivers running deep or cutting a chicane. So everybody keeping neat and tidy. George Russell neat and tidy across the line. Puts the Mercedes up into second. We haven't seen a lap time yet from Max Verstappen, or a proper lap time. He's now down in 19th and slowing right down to find himself a bit of a gap. He's got Piastri ahead of him on the track. 7 minutes to go then at Q1. It's Alonso, Russell, Gasly, the top three. Behrman and Antonelli make up the top five. Then comes Stroll in 6th, Albon behind. Then Lawson, Hadjar and Hulkenberg the top 10, with Hamilton, Colapinto, Norris is 13th, ahead of Bortoletto and Ocon. Into the elimination zone goes Yuki Tsunoda, Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, who threw away his lap as Esteban Ocon is really rallying with his Haas. He can barely put his foot down on the throttle without the rear end stepping out.
So loose for all these drivers out there, and Max trying to get some space, and the thing with that is he's going to lose temperature in his tyres, but Ocon sails to the top of the times at 157.124. So Rosanna said the rain is easing, which is obviously going to improve the conditions on track. The more cars that are circulating, no one will come in to change tyres for a new set of wets. I'll be shocked as again Charles Leclerc, he's struggling.
I think Charles Leclerc has he made
He might have made contact with the wall there, because he's going very slowly. He's heavily impeded one of the RBs as well, so I think you might be right, and he's not set a time yet.
I think Charles Leclerc's had issues.
Could be potentially Charles Leclerc being out.
The man who set pole position here back in 2023. Just trying to look at the driver tracker now. He's moving very slowly down the last straight before you get to the start finish. Without a time, Leclerc, 5.5 minutes under that left to go. In the bottom 5 is Tsunoda, Piastri, Verstappen, Sainz and Leclerc. Leclerc does get around again. We haven't seen whether he did make any contact with the wall, but certainly made a mistake, had to get out of it, and in doing so rather got in the way of a few other cars, as Lance Stroll continues to thrive in these conditions in that Aston Martin and puts himself half a second clear at the top, immediately falls to 9/10 behind Carlos Sainz, who takes over as the leader of the pack.
He was just on board with Oscar Piastri, who we say doesn't seem to favour the slippy conditions, and he's jumped up to P2 in the times, but this order's definitely going to change. But yeah, I feel like Leclerc was going a bit too slowly there. I don't know which RB it was that he impeded, but I can imagine they'll be on the radio complaining. But Antonelli looking pretty good, fastest, or he was, anyone in the first sector, but that's snatched away by his teammate.
That is the sound of Kimi Antonelli as Piastri goes second, Behrman third, Ocon up to 4th. Stroll rounds out the top 5. Sainz the quickest driver at the moment. The benchmark time is a 1:55.659 as George Russell is on a lap and fastest of anybody through the first sector. Antonelli's up in the middle sector. Charles Leclerc is out again too. Fernando Alonso making his way round on the track, fastest of anybody in the middle sector, and we see him now trying to get onto the brakes into the left-hander of turn number 14 after they've travelled nearly 2 kilometres down the strip where Kimi Antonelli almost loses the Mercedes. He runs deep, he has to clip the curb, rides the bump, and that would have lost him time as Lando Norris crosses the line with 3.5 minutes to go and puts his McLaren second, make that third with Alonso in P2.
It's the evolution of lap time is so great at the moment that you could be P2 one lap, as we saw Oscar Piastri was less than a lap ago, and he's already down into 7th place, so it can quickly change. And Max Verstappen is finally starting to find a bit of pace. It's usually his conditions. how early on the brakes they are. They usually brake 150, 140 meters, I think, going down into turn 14. He was braking 250 meters, maybe even earlier than that, feathering out the throttle. That is how slippy, that is how wet the track is. But Max Verstappen fastest in the middle sector. This should promote him quite easily up into the top 10, I was going to say, but it's fastest for him.
Yeah, by just under 0.2 of a second. Message from the stewards room. Turn 5 incident involving Carlos Sainz will be investigated after the session. That's for rejoining unsafely. So I feel that would be a harsh one for Sainz, but we'll see in these conditions. Right now, vying to get themselves out of the elimination zone, the Sauber of Gabriel Bortoleto, the Alpine of Pierre Gasly, and he does so, rockets up to 3rd. That puts Hamilton down into 16th ahead of Bortoleto. Then it's Lawson Tsunoda and the other Sauber of Nico Hülkenberg, who is currently 20th and last, and so early on the brakes.
There's a yellow flag out. There was a yellow flag out, so he's going to have to slow down for that, Harry. But he has done a very good first and middle sector. So as long as he doesn't show, well, any improvement through turn 14, he should go. Yeah. So he backed off enough, didn't make any improvement in that final sector. So he's put himself into P3. So he should keep that lap.
Minute and 43 on the clock. Piastri's in 14th. Leclerc is in 15th. Hamilton is down in 19th. We're hearing the sound of Charles Leclerc as Max Verstappen with the benchmark time, a 1:55.06.4, fastest ahead of Carlos Sainz. Then comes Norris, Hadjar, the top 5. Leclerc sails up to the top of the times in that Ferrari. Surely at this point it is last over the line and trying to not make any mistakes on this incredibly tricky track as Yuki Tsunoda is making his way round the final corner, but he's being hounded by the Williams of Carlos Sainz. Tsunoda still 20th and last. Stroll goes to the top as Behrman can do nothing but watch as his car slides into the runoff area, makes contact with the barrier. It's a light touch. His hands off the steering wheel as he could do nothing to stop that car aquaplaning off. The yellow flag is out with 45 seconds to go. Hamilton's down in 19th, Tsunoda's 20th, Antonelli is 16th. If Ollie Behrman can get back going quickly, this will help some, but Hamilton's had to go slowly in the middle sector. Stroll to the top of the times, ahead of Verstappen. Piastri's up to 3rd. Lando Norris is 7th. Will there be a last-minute heartbreak for any of the remaining drivers yet to set a lap time? Colin Pinto up into the top 5, but it's disaster for the Williams of Alex Albon. He gets a snap on the car, coming out of turn 16, finds the wall, the front right suspension collapses, sparks flying, he moves over to the side of the road. Sainz is done and out of this qualifying and straight into the pit lane. So too comes, it was Alex Albon, sorry, not Sainz, and then so too Antonelli. Bortoleto takes the checkered flag. Hamilton down in 19th and looking like he is out of this one. He's not going to do it with Max Verstappen up into 2nd, Tsunoda 20th and last right now, but still Verstappen pushing. Hamilton
can still push because he didn't take the checkered flag, so unless he got heavily bulked, he would have started the first lap, so we'll keep an eye on his sector times.
He's not pushing though, Alice. He's white, which means not fast. Green is fastest for him. White is not fast. I think Hamilton is out.
Hamilton is down in 19th, 3.9 seconds adrift. The clock has counted down to 0. It was the Williams of Alex Albon who did make it back to the pit lane, but with one wheel hanging by a thread. Teammate Carlos Sainz taking the checkered flag up into 10th. Max Verstappen rounds the final corner, does improve his overall lap time up into 2nd. Kimi Antonelli's not getting through. He is out of Q1. So too is Gabby Bortoleto, along with Yuki Tsunoda, and Lewis Hamilton gets shuffled all the way down to 20th and last of the runners. As Gasly still navigating in his Williams, should be safely through Pierre Gasly. He's in 14th at the moment, so too for Hülkenberg and Liam Lawson as Gasly rockets up into 5th. Incredible from the Alpine. Nico Hülkenberg will come across the line and put himself up into 7th, and Liam Lawson already in the top 10 but improving. So Albon out in 16th. Antonelli out in 17th. Bortoletto out in 18th. With a Red Bull and a Ferrari occupying the back row. As we're going to go back with Alex Albon in the Williams. It's coming out of turn 16 and just lost it under power, Alice.
Yeah, so slippy. And a shake of a head for him. One small error. But I have to say, we were sat here before we came on air, here from Albon.
Still a 5-second cross, final out, 5-second cross. You're too much speaking.
So he's saying that it was obviously speaking when going around the corner and he got a distraction. But we were saying that this qualifying session could be carnage with the slippy conditions. And I have to say, I know these are the best, or some of the best drivers in the world, but fair play to them. It's the trickiest conditions they would have been facing, particularly with these lack of temperature. Let's hear from Hamilton.
Get the tyres to work.
Yeah, very sleepy on there.
That was Lewis Hamilton saying couldn't get the tyres to work. I mean, that is probably some of the trickiest conditions they've experienced all season. To reconfirm then, out of the first part of qualifying in 16th place, having made contact with the wall, Alex Albon in 17th position. Bit of a shock drop, the Mercedes of Kimi Antonelli, with Sauber's Gabriel Bortoletto 18th. Yuki Tsunoda shown good pace this weekend, but it all fell away down in 19th. And we just heard from Lewis Hamilton there. Couldn't get the tyres to work. The full wets, 20th and last.
I mean, we know from the history of this year that the Ferrari is not good in the wet. And what Hamilton said there is what they've been struggling with in wet conditions all year. But Hamilton is nearly 3 seconds slower than his teammate Charles Leclerc. And, I mean, he said yesterday, at the last race in Sao Paulo, that the season had been a nightmare. He'd been living it for a while. It just continues for Lewis Hamilton, doesn't it?
We're getting another look at Ollie Behrman, who could do nothing, even had time to put his hands up in frustration as he slid into the wall and caused a yellow flag. Now, did that affect Lewis Hamilton? He's going into a yellow flag sector and then does pick up the pace of the green flag. So Hamilton was behind Alex Albon when he hit the wall. Did that cost Hamilton enough?
So I'm just looking at his best first sectors. He was over a second off in the first sector in his best. He was 1.5 seconds off in the middle sector. And then the last sector, 1.2 off the best. So I don't think that yellow flag, I hate to say it, affected him. I just think, as he said on the radio, couldn't switch the tyres on, couldn't get the temperature, couldn't get the grip. And Hamilton's usually one of the best drivers in these conditions. We've seen some incredible drives from him in the wet over the years. Silverstone, can't remember the year, but was it 2008?
Yeah, one of the greatest wet weather drives of all time.
Yeah. So he can do it, but something is not clicking. Him, not getting the tyres switched on. But why?
Well, Lewis Hamilton then gets wheeled back into his garage and will take no further part in this qualifying as we await for the start of Q2, which Race Control have said will be delayed.
It's also worth saying that Lando Norris is 13th. Even he was struggling in these conditions. Oscar Piastri's teammate 6th. This goes to show how much jeopardy there is. And I didn't see that video. Here's Leclerc's radio.
Engine switched off.
Oh. So that will explain why we thought he's just got in the way.
Yes, so that was when we thought, has he hit the wall coming out of turn 16? But he was all out of sorts anyway, just trying to get that car away from the wall. It was proper rally style with the rear end kicking out, then him going full lock left hand down. But the engine did cut out there. I wonder if
he's lucky.
Had you accidentally hit a button and power it down to zero?
No, not on the steering wheel. Definitely not.
So the reason for the delay to the start of Q2, the FIA say, if I can just open my WhatsApp, is that they're replacing the bollard at the apex of turn 14 and clearing debris from the track. So turn 14 is the corner at the end of the strip, and bollard presumably marks the middle of the corner. It's a bit awkward, isn't it, in 2025 having a bollard marking the apex of a corner on a Formula 1 Grand Prix track, but there we are. And I don't know what the debris is, but presumably from Alex Albon's crash where he took the right front corner off his Williams, there's probably a bit of carbon debris on the track there, and carbon debris can be very, very dangerous because it's very sharp and it can cause punctures, and you don't want a puncture in these sorts of conditions, or any for that matter.
Second time in a row, a Williams has hit the wall in that part of the track as well. It's where Franco Colapinto had that 50G crash this time last year. Albon out. We would see Kimi Antonelli again in this qualifying. P17, his third Q1 elimination of the season. Gabriel Bortoleto out in 18th. Sauber drivers are now tied 11-11 in qualifying this season. Bortoleto with his teammate Hulkenberg. Tsunoda, P19, 6th Q1 elimination of the season. And Hamilton, slowest in qualifying on outright pace, I think, for the first time in his Formula 1 career.
I think that's probably true. And the best team on average in that first qualifying session was Aston Martin. George Russell fastest, followed by Max Verstappen, no surprise there, but Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll third and fourth. Alonso considerably quicker than Stroll, but both of them doing a really good job to go third and fourth. And it's really helped them, because this is a track that would be really, really uncompetitive for the Aston Martins. They've got a high drag car, long straights here. They weren't expecting a good weekend, and they haven't looked quick, have they, all weekend? No. But the wet has really brought the track to them, and I wonder where they can end up. They'll be rubbing their hands with glee at these conditions, as long as both drivers can keep the car out of the wall, of course.
There we go, there's the caveat, there's the commentator curse right
they
there.
Are just repairing Ollie Behrman's car, so some adjustments to be done. It looks like, they're caked in. Potentially some of the front right suspension possibly got a little bit of damage when he went into the wall there.
What was surprising about that crash for Ollie Behrman to me was that he went straight on, nose first into the wall, bounced out the tyre. It was like one of the sort of impact absorbing plastic barriers that they have in Formula 1, that sometimes they sort of interchange between tyre barriers and those. Bounced back off it, and the front wing looked undamaged. I've never seen that before, ever.
It was such a slow crash, though, really. Enough time for Behrman to raise both hands in almost, disbelief that he was about to hit the wall. Good to see him get back into the pit lane and back out on track.
That's rule number one when you're about to have a crash, as Alice will know. Take your hands off the steering wheel.
Yeah, but he did it in a very matter-of-fact way, where he was clearly going, I can't believe I'm about to hit the wall here, rather than, I think, protecting his wrists too much. However, he does get respite, because he just made it through into Q2, which will start at 8:31 local time. So just a few minutes then, as Lando Norris wants to get a hurry on and straight down to the end of the pit lane. So he's first in the queue.
He wants to get that clear track, but I just want to bring back to the track evolution. We saw Antonelli probably 3 minutes before the end of that session, was floating around in the top 5. He had a fastest middle sector as well, and he's 17th and out of the first part of qualifying. So that's how quickly the track has been developing. Tyres have been building up to temperature. They've just been continuously pushing, unless that they've had traffic or gone off. That's the only time that they've been going slowly. But Lando clearly wants some clear track, no spray in front of him. The repairs seem to be done on Ollie Behrman's car now, apart from a little bit of adjustments with some tape on the front, and he'll be good to go back out.
By the way, as we get ready for Q2, we see the cars line up in the pit lane just a couple of minutes before we get the green light on and we get back going again. But tell you what, let's get a driver's perspective of all of the chaos, and one of them to fall by the wayside in Q1 was Red Bull's Yuki Tsunoda. He's speaking to Rosanna Tennant.
Yuki, what were the conditions like out there? It looked treacherous to watch. What was it like in the cockpit?
Yeah, very tricky, but at the same time, I just, I don't know why, but just struggled with the grip overall, and didn't have grip at all. Very strange, like ice.
Like ice, gosh.
But I don't know what's happened specifically for myself, because clearly something was not going on, working, I feel like, so,
You said yesterday you were starting to feel confident in the car, obviously totally different conditions. Can you feel confident going into the race tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, pace was good until today. I mean, I did this session, so very frustrating. But yeah, it just, I don't know what's happened there.
Yuki Tsunoda out and down in 19th. It's a shame because he has been looking good this weekend in comparison to the majority of the season.
Yeah, he's had strong start. I mean, not so much now to the weekend, but I can guarantee you that is going to be down to tyre temperature. And I've spent many of Cole's winters.
Las Vegas morning.
Winters, particularly with junior drivers, whether that be at Snetterton, Silverstone, where there's frost on the grass, and honestly, you will be amazed how much of a difference in these colder temperatures, even a few degree of tyre temperature can make so much difference. And it's hard because when it's already this cold and it's already this slippy, you feel like, well, I can't be any more aggressive, I can't push anymore, I can't use my brakes anymore. And yeah, that's clearly, I would expect, is what's happened to Yuki Tsunoda, is that he's just not been able to fire up the tyres like Lewis Hamilton, and it does then give you that feeling that you're driving on ice.
Well, green light on at the end of the pit lane. The ice rink comes alive once more with the remaining 15 drivers in the field, 40 minutes and 40 seconds on the clock, and Lando Norris is straight out there. I mean, these are the conditions where not only, we've got a Drivers' Championship battle still going on. 24 points separate Lando Norris, who leads Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen still in mathematical contention, although if Lando Norris outscores him by 9 points in the Grand Prix, he will be ruled out. So this is crunch time when it comes to pressure and handling it, and as we said in Q1, that risk versus reward strategy, particularly for Lando Norris. But there's stuff to play for up and down the field. We've got the battle for second in the Constructors' Championship, which Mercedes currently holds, 32 points ahead of Red Bull. They're only 4 points ahead of Ferrari, and now Red Bull with one car out, along with Ferrari and Mercedes. So they're all one man down. Then you've got a great battle for sixth, and that's where you could really see a massive swing in points. Racing Bulls currently occupy that. They are 29 points, 10 points ahead of Aston Martin, who are only 2 points ahead of Haas, who are only 8 points ahead of Sauber. So for those guys in the midfield, these are the conditions where they could really bank some big points.
Now, watching the cars coming out of the pits for this first lap of the second session, it's obviously not dry, but you can see a line where it's much drier than the rest of the track. I don't know what you think, Alice. Obviously, they're still all on the extreme wet tyre. But if it's not raining anymore, maybe Rosanna can give us a weather update, because although we can see out the commentary box window, it's not that easy to tell whether it's raining or not because of the lights and everything. It could well be that we get into this session where a relatively dry line emerges.
Yeah, could do. And we were riding on board visor cam with Lando Norris, and that was wheel spin in fifth gear as he was going towards turn 17 on the brakes. And you have to feed that lock-in so gently. Third gear now as he goes up into turn 2, into turn 3, flicks it up into fourth, short shift slightly, sixth gear, and then 7, he will hit the brakes then into turn 5, braking so much earlier than certainly than you usually would on, let's say, Sao Paulo, where we were last time out in the wet, because it's just hugely slippy. But fastest of anyone in this first sector in these early stages of Q2. And actually, because we've been so distracted with the slippy conditions and the weather, Harry, I feel like we've almost a little bit forgotten how important this qualifying session could be for not just Lando Norris but Oscar Piastri as well.
It certainly will be, and Piastri out there on track too. In fact, everybody is out there on track now, all 15 cars. Lando Norris is the sound you're hearing as he gently applies the throttle once more and heads down the Las Vegas Boulevard. The strip arcs to the left through turn 13 as he races by the Venetian, heads southbound past the Eiffel Tower, running alongside the fountains outside the Bellagio, Caesar's Palace, casts a shadow as he brakes for the left-hander of turn 14. Early braking for Lando Norris, takes the curb over 15. It unsettles the car, having to really hound the steering wheel left and right just to keep that Papaya McLaren pointing in a straight direction. Eases off the throttle through the usual flat-out left-hander of 17. Not in these conditions. Closes the lap with a 1:53.302. Everybody out there on the full wet tyre once again. But for Lando Norris, with the best qualifying around this track of 6th place last year, this hasn't been a happy hunting ground for McLaren the last couple of years. But Norris has shown some good pace in the dry practice sessions we've had and is looking to qualify on the front row once again, having done so in the last 3 races, looking for number 4.
Piastri, fastest of anyone in the first sector, riding on board with Max Verstappen. He's braking quite a bit earlier, actually, than Lando Norris. Lando was around 220 metres before the corner down into turn 14, whereas Max Verstappen was about 250. But he gets it stopped nicely. Looking at the sectors, this is not, by the looks of it, going to propel him up to the top of the timesheets, but it's going to put him in, slot him into 5th place. And I have to say, Piastri looking pretty decent as well, but so is George Russell. Again, fastest of anyone in that first sector.
Norris, Russell, Stroll, Lawson, Verstappen the top 5. Alonso, Gasly, Hadjar, Colapinto. Leclerc comes across the line in 10th as the first lap times get set. Yellow flag down at turn 12. Is it one of the Mercedes? Is it George Russell, who is flying through the first sector? Yellow flag goes away again. So all is clear. A reminder, the bottom 5 drivers will be eliminated at the end of this session as Piastri now races his way down towards the hairpin of turn 1. Set a lap time, puts him 11th fastest, 1.6 seconds off his teammate Lando Norris. But what we can see here is multiple push laps. The cold conditions, track temperature 12.8 degrees, air temperature just hovering underneath 12 degrees. It's chilly, it's cold, it's wet.
It was that middle sector for Piastri that was pretty shocking, to be honest. First and last were fine, and it was George Russell that was over 10 seconds off in sector 2, so I imagine it was him that went off at turn 12. Charles Leclerc is being able to fire up the tyres on his Ferrari. He's fastest in the first sector, has lost a couple of tenths in the middle sector to Lance Stroll, who seems, wow, extremely comfortable in these conditions.
Stroll loves wet conditions. I would not be surprised to see him fighting for a top 5 position come the end of this qualifying. There's something about Stroll when it comes to rainy, damp, tricky conditions, low grip, which he seems to very much enjoy.
It's one of the mysteries of Lance Stroll, isn't it? You know, he's obviously
one
got
of the many mysteries.
Yeah, he's obviously got a load of talent, because this is where talent is supposed to shine brightest in these difficult conditions. But it just doesn't translate in the dry. I just don't really understand. But there you are.
Well, at the moment, he's 3rd, ahead of Alonso in 4th, with Lando Norris rounding out the top 5. Piastri's having another go, so too is Norris, but he's down on time in the middle sector. Just over 7.5 minutes to go. Let's check in with Rosanna Tennant.
You'll probably remember Lance Stroll taking pole position in Istanbul for the Turkish Grand Prix in 2020, and after that pole position, he said the reason he's good in these conditions is because he used to drive on ice in Canada. So here we are. We just heard Yuki Tsunoda say it's like ice out there. This is why Lance Stroll is right up the top.
I mean, you could say the same thing about Gilles Villeneuve, because he blooded his teeth in, if that's the phrase, it's not, is it? I've just made that one up, but on a snowmobile in the mid-70s. He became the fastest driver of his era, but he was good in the dry as well. So I still don't understand, but anyway.
Well, Stroll has suffered the most Q1 eliminations of anybody this season with 14. So he now finally gets himself up into at least Q2, but is looking sitting pretty up in 4th at the moment. It could well make it into Q3, but we've still got 6 minutes and 43 seconds on the clock to go. Charles Leclerc is on a quick lap through the first sector, fastest of anybody through the first sector. In the middle sector, though, loses a little bit of time as Piastri now gets himself together and goes to the top of the times by 13 thousandths of a second. But now Lawson goes to the top and puts Piastri half a second back. So again, with every lap, the track getting dry. I think Sector 1, we just saw a little graphic up on our screen. They're almost thinking Sector 1, at least the first couple of corners, the hairpin through 2, 3 and 4 onto the straight, ready for an intermediate tyre. The rest of this track still very much the full wet, the choice of use from the drivers.
Very good first sector by Charles Leclerc, but something happened in that middle sector. See where it promotes him, doesn't. It sticks him still in 8th place. That was Esteban Ocon going a little bit wide. Norris is finding some time though, fastest of anyone in the middle sector. Let's have a look at Piastri, who's not making any improvements. Actually, he lost way over 10 seconds in that middle sector, so maybe he's made a mistake somewhere along the line as well.
Not Norris fastest of anybody through the middle sector. This is the sound of the man who leads the championship by 24 points. The 26-year-old from Glastonbury trying to put his foot down on the throttle. Currently sitting in 7th, nearly 8/10 back from the quickest lap time of Liam Lawson. Yellow flag comes out onto the track. It won't affect Norris. He improves his time, does Lando Norris, and puts himself up into 2nd spot, but can't quite pit the Racing Bulls of Liam Lawson. Strolls out there, and he is stuck on the intermediate tyre. So if my timing tower is to be believed, but the graphic is telling me something else, so maybe that's wrong, but I thought Stroll might be trying something there. We'll see and get a look at him and see if he does indeed go on to that intermediate. Hadjar at the top of the times. Racing Bulls flying right now, 1 and 2.
That was George Russell causing another yellow flag. He seems to have the pace, but he just keeps making these small mistakes that shoots him wide. One snatch of the, well, either front tyre can send you down an escape road, but Max Verstappen's finding his groove. A very, very good middle sector. He's got a little bit of traffic in front of him. It might hinder his next lap. That's Pierre Gasly, but across the line and jumps up into the 151s.
Verstappen, Hadjar, Lawson, Norris, Piastri, the top 5. Sainz, Stroll, Alonso, Leclerc, Russell, the top 10. Behrman 11th ahead of Ocon, who is really wrestling with the Haas continually with every corner that comes, somehow keeping it together and in pretty good nick at the moment, only just behind his teammate. Hulkenberg 13th, with the 2 Alpines currently occupying 14th and 15th.
So Max Verstappen is again looking pretty good. George Russell struggled in that middle sector. I don't know if he's made a mistake somewhere along the line.
39.1 for Russell in the middle sector.
They're in the 38s. Sainz has just done a 38.6, so he just needs to string a lap together. Just George Russell, and he'll be all right, because at each point throughout one of the laps, he's had a really good sector, but is just not able to do it. Wow! And Charles Leclerc has just posted a really impressive first sector. That's 0.6 quicker than what Carlos Sainz has just done to put himself in pole position at the moment.
Yeah, good lap for this from Leclerc. Good start to the lap. Lance Stroll has put on the intermediate tyre. He is the first to switch over to that intermediate tyre. Oh, now it's just gone away again. I'm trying to
Maybe they don't know. It's so wet they can't see what.
Maybe they've got a transponder issue. I've got one screen telling me he's on the intermediate, the other one telling me he's on the wet, and we've not actually seen him out on track. So I want to see how he's getting on with it. Either way, Charles Leclerc through the middle sector, personal best, but 0.03 of a second down on Carlos Sainz through the middle sector. It's Verstappen who's fastest of anybody through the middle sector. Leclerc holds the fastest first sector. George Russell fastest through the final sector. This is the sound of the Monegasque, currently down in 12th position, looking to improve his position as he comes into the braking zone for turn 14 after a 1.9 kilometre straight that takes you down the strip, flying through the city streets of Las Vegas, the Neon City, very much coming to life this weekend. An assault on every sense imaginable. Add Formula One cars racing in the wet at over 200 miles per hour, and my word, have you got a show. Charles Leclerc crosses the line, puts himself up into 6th.
Under 2 minutes of the session left to go now, and Hulkenberg, is he going to get that stop just about into turn 14? They're all using that curve at turn 15, but as soon as you you slide off it, you get a big hit of oversteer, but clearly they feel it's the best way. Charles Leclerc, for all his efforts in that first sector, is not able to propel himself much higher up. He's struggling a bit in that middle sector. Max Verstappen, though, he's looking the strongest so far on this lap. A very decent first sector.
Oscar Piastri currently in 9th position, down on time in the middle sector. Lando Norris is in 8th at the moment, on for a better lap. He's going to come across the line shortly. He does so, and he goes fastest by almost a tenth and a half. It's a 1:51 for Lando Norris, 1:51.379. For the Brits, it's Franco Colapinto somehow saves his Alpine from finding the wall sideways out of the corner, coming out of turn 16. Loses time in doing so and might well lose the chance to progress through. His teammate Gasly's currently up in 11th. Max Verstappen, fastest of anybody through the middle sector. Charles Leclerc, fastest of anybody through the first sector, and it's fallen away for Max Verstappen. He can't get it stopped into the left-hander of turn 15. He runs deep. The car eventually plays ball, but a huge chunk of lap time lost for the Dutchman, who's currently up in 3rd, though, at risk. Hulkenberg in 10th, Gasly, Stroll, Ocon, Behrman and Colapinto. It's 2 Hasses versus 2 Alpines and an Aston Martin, all trying to find something to get themselves up into the top 10. Piastri is only in 9th position here, but he is on for a personal best through the middle sector, is Oscar Piastri, but is down on his own personal best through sector 1. So Piastri needs to find himself a little bit more of a buffer here, and Lance Stroll also going well too in the Aston Martin outside of the top 10.
So Lance Stroll's got knocked out, but what was interesting, if he is on intermediates like we were seeing on one of our timing screens, he was starting to set green and purple mini sectors, so that suggests the track is edging towards the intermediates, even if it wasn't the right decision to put them on at the end of this session.
Yellow flag out. Stroll does indeed take the checkered flag along with the 2 Haas cars. They will not progress. Colapinto, I don't think, will progress either, having had an issue. And then Pierre Gasly just on the bubble in 11th spot is Gasly, who's out there at the moment and heading it down the strip now. Sainz crosses the line, improves to 2nd place. Russell crossed the line and finished at the top with a 1:59.35. Norris 3rd, Piastri 9th, has taken the checkered flag to Hadjar with a nice tidy lap right at the end in the Racing Bulls, pops himself up into 2nd spot. Hulkenberg takes the checkered flag in 10th. Pierre Gasly still teetering his way round the track over the bump and curb at turn 15, out through 16, and the Alpine just looks like it's bound for the wall, but somehow the Frenchman keeps control of it. Lawson rockets up into 6th. Can Pierre Gasly do himself a favour and get himself up into the top 10? He certainly can. Somehow the Frenchman makes that Alpine quick and puts it up into 7th spot. Out goes Hulkenberg along with Lance Stroll's Aston Martin. Esteban Ocon in the Haas ahead of Ollie Behrman, his teammate, and Franco Colapinto, who had an almighty tank slapper on his final flying lap. Couldn't keep it together and is out in 15th and last, and confirmation at long last, Stroll was indeed on the intermediate tyre.
Couple of things. Colapinto nearly visited the same wall he did last year, and the other thing is Piastri was, well, say lucky, but Lance Stroll was constantly up there in the top 5. I would probably, it depends whose call it was, probably is going to be Lance Stroll's call to come in. But imagine if he didn't. That could have been, we could have been seeing Oscar Piastri out of qualifying. So he's got Lance Stroll and Aston Martin potentially to thank for making that call to switch to intermediate tyres.
Yeah, at the end of that session there, Russell was quickest ahead of Hadjar, Sainz, Norris, Verstappen the top 5, Lawson, Gasly, Alonso, Leclerc and Piastri just making it through into the top 10. We lose Nico Hulkenberg, Lance Stroll, Esteban Ocon, Ollie Behrman and Franco Colapinto out of Q2. We lost Alex Albon in Q1 after making contact with the wall. He's in the pen and he's speaking with Rosanna.
Alex, I spoke to you a few moments before the qualifying session started, and you said it wasn't going to suit your car, these conditions.
Yeah.
Was it as bad as you were fearing?
Yes. I mean, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't the end of the world, but it wasn't good. We've been good in the dry. We've always seen our car struggle in the wet. I was okay. I felt like actually I wasn't that slow. If I just had a clean laps, I would have been okay, but I didn't do one clean lap. And then, honestly, when you have one clean lap at the end of the race, lap of the session to do some kind of lap, you're not really in a rhythm. So yeah.
You were quite quick on the radio to say too much talking. Was it the distraction that caused the crash?
Yeah, we were. Yeah, a little bit, but it's not on my engineer. It's just we were on the bubble in terms of getting into Q2, but also making the checkered flag, and so we were just. There's a lot of chatter going into the last corner. Basically, there was a yellow flag in front. I think Ollie went south, so I was trying to kind of navigate the corner whilst we were having a chat, basically. But I think I just lost a little bit of concentration, and not on my engineer, just frustration.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Alex Albon then frustrated, as could have been a big result in qualifying for him. Carlos Sainz is right up there. Albon has been right up there throughout the practice session, so that will be gutting for the tyre driver.
It will, and gutting for Ollie Bearman as well, who's just catching some replays from that session, and it looks like the front right. What do you call those? The cover on
the wheel fairing.
Wheel fairing broke, and the mechanics were super gluing it back. But he's out of qualifying, so they'll have time to fix that tomorrow. But yeah, frustrating for Albon, particularly when his teammates sailed through into Q3, second or third fastest time.
Yeah, as we head into the top 10 and the fight for pole position, and just a couple of parish notices from that session in terms of race control messages. There was an incident involving Liam Lawson for a yellow flag infringement. That has been reviewed, and there will be no further investigation on that one. So both Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar through and up into the top 10. So great qualifying so far for the two Racing Bulls as the Mexican waves get going in the grandstands. I think they're all trying to keep warm and dry, dotted around this Las Vegas Strip circuit. Just to reconfirm then, from that Q2 session, we have lost Nico Hulkenberg in 11th spot, Lance Stroll out in 12th, Esteban Ocon 13th, they had Ollie Bearman in the Haas, Franco Colapinto was 15th, and then in Q1 we lost Albon, who you just heard from, Antonelli's Mercedes, Bortoletto in the Sauber, with Tsunoda and Hamilton in their Red Bull and Ferrari respectively, right at the back. So that leaves us with a minute and 15 before Q3 gets going. We've got, well, two Racing Bulls, we've got two McLarens, we've got one Alpine, we've got one Aston Martin, we've got one Williams, we've got one Mercedes, and we've got an Alpine.
And we've got intermediate tyres on Lando Norris's car as he heads out the pit lane, as we thought that might be the case looking from Lance Stroll's last half lap.
The true test then, is the track ready? They believe so, and it will be just 40 seconds until we get this qualifying back underway. The top 10 shootout about to commence. The fight for pole position is on. Still any ideas of who might take pole?
Russell. And I'm not just saying that because he was fastest in that session, but he's looked pretty comfortable. When he's strung a lap together, which he did in that one eventually, he's looked very solid, but it's stringing it together has been the issue. Max Verstappen's looked good. Again, another driver that if he strings it together is looking pretty handy.
I would say Russell, Verstappen and Norris are the three favourites.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that's the top three order.
No, that's just the three competing for pole, I think. But the order's been changing so much. You know, with the Racing Bulls have been looking competitive. Charles Leclerc has set consistently fast first sector times, but can't seem to be fast in the second and third sectors for some reason. So really anything could happen.
Well, we're underway. Q3 is on. Leclerc heads out first, followed by Lando Norris in the McLaren and his teammate Oscar Piastri. Then it's Isaac Hadjar and Liam Lawson in the two Racing Bulls that follow out of the pit lane. And everybody registering intermediate tyres on the board, having probably seen the most action from the full wet tyre all year long.
And that's the point, because a car quick on the wet tyre might not have the same relative performance to the others on the intermediate tyre. So that's kind of really why I was saying that it's almost impossible to say who's going to be quick. But the closer you get to dry conditions, the more you would expect the usual contenders to rise to the top.
Sound of Max Verstappen making his way out of the pit lane. Race victory here, of course, back in 2023, took his World Championship. 2024, Vegas has been good to him. Well, I'm not sure he's the biggest fan of Vegas in particular, but the sole remaining Red Bull, very much a one-man band fighting for second in that Constructors' title. What can he do? Certainly in the mix, certainly there to upset the front runners, still very much in this title fight, even if he is the outside bet. Both McLarens fighting hard, but once again, it seems Norris has the pace advantage over his Australian rival, Oscar Piastri.
He certainly does. Charles Leclerc, though, is... well, we said earlier in the weekend, even when we'd had dry running, that we'd expect to probably see him at least in the top three. I mean, he was my prediction coming into the weekend to be on pole position, because he's looked pretty strong throughout the first couple of practice sessions we had. Second at the moment, Lando Norris has just jumped to the top of the times, but going through the first sector where he has been really strong, he's going to cut the time in. I expect will set the fastest first sector of anyone, and Isaac Hadjar has just jumped to the top of the times as well.
Oh yeah, they're all just embarking on their laps now, but Charles Leclerc is making his way through the left-hander of turn 7, overlooked by the Sphere Stadium, and almost gets the front end, well, has a big swap on the front end as Charles Leclerc, as he applies the throttle out of turn number 9. He now heads down Sands Avenue, 2 high-speed bends to the right, then the left, slow it all down for the slow left-hander of turn number 12. The wall juts in nice and tight for the Scarlet Ferrari as he now heads down Las Vegas Boulevard, past the iconic landmarks that make up Sin City, from the Eiffel Tower to the Bellagio and Caesar's Palace. He races by at 200 miles per hour, the Eiffel Tower lit up, overlooking the Ferrari as he brakes for a series of tight, slow corners, gets oh so close to the wall on the exit of turn 16, unsettles the car slightly. Lando Norris quicker through the middle sector, fastest of anybody through that middle sector right now is Lando Norris, but Charles Leclerc around the final corner now, with water still very much on this track, but everybody out there on the intermediate tyre. Leclerc sets the benchmark, a 1:52.060. Lando Norris crosses the line, a 1:55.295.
Sainz is looking good, fastest in the first, fastest in the middle, so we'll see what he can do, seeming really at home at the moment in the Williams in these really tricky conditions. He's going to come through the final corner now, fly past our commentary box window, and I expect we'll see him jump to the top of the times. He does, nearly half a second clear, and the first driver to dip into the 150s.
I think Lando Norris must have made a mistake in the final sector of his lap, because he's 3 seconds off the pace when he was looking to be competing with Charles Leclerc for fastest time while they were out together. Yeah,
we haven't seen that from Lando Norris, but it will explain it. Carlos Sainz to the top of the times, 1:58.80 ahead of Isaac Hadjar. Then comes Charles Leclerc in third, Liam Lawson is fourth, Oscar Piastri the top 5, Max Verstappen has just crossed the line and put himself in sixth ahead of Norris. We'll wait and see Alonso, Gasly and George Russell and what they have got to offer us. Charles Leclerc going again, fastest of anybody through the middle sector. Norris going again, fastest of anybody through the middle sector. Oscar Piastri fastest of anybody through the first sector. Piastri coming alive a little bit more with just over 6.5 minutes to go in this qualifying session.
But Piastri's half a second down on his teammate in the middle sector. It's gone wrong for
Charles
Leclerc. He's had a lock-up, he's overshot. Is that going to affect Lando Norris? Luckily, the yellow flag came in and he wasn't impeded at all by Charles Leclerc, but he will have the Ferrari right in front of him now. He might decide to back off on this next lap, so he's got clear track. So let's have a look. This should put Lando Norris to the top of the times, and he does. Wow, already in the 1:49s, 1.2 seconds clear of Sainz, but Piastri snatches that away immediately, nearly 5 tenths clear of his teammate.
The ride for Lando Norris over the curb at turn 15 and 16 looked like a bit of a rough ride. I wonder if he lost a little bit of time there, and there's more to find there, but over 4.5 tenths back from his teammate Oscar Piastri. It's a positive start to Q3 for the Australian. The McLarens head the field. Carlos Sainz, with the fastest final sector, splits the two McLarens now and puts himself up into second. Then it's Lawson fourth, Hadjar fifth, Leclerc with a mistake down into turn 14 in sixth. We've got a yellow flag out on track at the moment. It goes away again. Verstappen down in 8th, Russell 9th, Gasly 10th, but they're all going again. They've all got time, just over 5 minutes on the clock. Verstappen does go again, only enough for 5th though.
I'll tell you what's interesting about this session. Verstappen and Alonso both been quick through this session on the wet tyres. Have not looked that good on the inters so far. Alonso's first lap was a long way off. His second lap still 2 seconds off the pace, and Verstappen also only 2 thousandths ahead of the Aston Martin.
George Russell slows it down for the left-hander at turn 15. The car tilts over the curve at 15. Slight right-hander, then through the left, gets him back onto Harman Avenue, the straight that leads you down towards the start-finish line. Down in 10th and last of the runners right now, through the left-hander, puts himself up into 5th, but he's over a second adrift of Oscar Piastri's time. It's Piastri who's currently a provisional pole, but Max Verstappen is going quicker. Even Hadjar was on a pretty blistering lap. Hadjar's going to come to the line shortly in the Racing Bulls, followed by his teammate Lawson. Verstappen fastest of anybody through the middle sector. Norris is fastest of anybody through the middle sector. Verstappen the first. Sainz fastest of anybody through sector 3.
I think it was Piastri that made a mistake down into turn 5. He's had he's not had a great first and not had a great middle. Hadjar jumps up into 4th. He was certainly expecting a little bit more from that. 9 tenths off Oscar Piastri's time, but Russell, wow, he has set a mighty first sector, snatched it away from Max Verstappen, so looking strong. And Verstappen now, can he get it stopped into turn 14? He does, straddles the curb at 15, as they chase that throttle, kicks them out. Norris now fastest in that first sector.
By nearly half a second as well. Norris in that first sector goes quicker than Oscar Piastri. Let's see if he can hold it all the way to the end of the lap. Verstappen improves up into second, just under a tenth away from the McLaren of Piastri. A 1:49.136 remains the benchmark, but Lando Norris is flying through the left-hand bend of turn 11, onto the brakes for another left-hander of turn 12. Onto the traction he goes. He'll approach a left-hand kink, taken almost flat through turn 13 that leads him down the strip. Almost 2 kilometres in length. No DRS. The rear wing flap will not fly open in these conditions. Not activated by race control. As he slows down for turn 14. Has he locked a brake? No, he's kept it in control through the left-hander of 14, but the rear end just upset slightly as he crosses over the curb at 15. Just one more corner to go then for Lando Norris. Sweeps round the left-hander. The lights glint off the Papaya McLaren as he finds 7.5 tenths of a gap over his teammate Piastri. Norris to provisional pole, ahead of Piastri. Verstappen 3rd, Sainz 4th, Lawson 5th, Leclerc, Hadjar, Russell, Alonso and Gasly, the top 10.
It's not going to be a big improvement, if improvement at all, for Oscar Piastri. He's certainly not going to touch the time of his teammate. He does improve, only by 2 tenths of a second. He's got to find nearly 6 tenths. George Russell, wow, snaking as he applies the throttle. Let's have a look at his first sector. 2 tenths down from that of Lando Norris, but he's been fairly strong in the middle sector. Let's have a look as he goes through now into turn 12, get that exit. He's going to head down the strip now, and he's lost some time, a lot of time in that middle sector.
He's about 1.5 seconds down in the middle sector.
Just a very brief update on a point that's not that important. I've just heard from Little Bird at Aston Martin that it wasn't Lance Stroll's decision to go onto the intermediate tyres at the end of Q2. So Oscar Piastri can thank Lance Stroll's engineer by the sounds of it.
Oh, I wouldn't. Can you imagine being in? I don't want to imagine being in that debrief.
There might be a bit of a strop going on there, I think.
He might not turn up for the debrief. We'll have to see, but it's not looking great, this Mercedes, from switching onto this intermediate tyre, is it, Harry?
No, it's not. He's lost a huge chunk of time in the middle sector. He's sliding left, right and centre as George Russell does not improve. Stays 7th. Tell you what, Liam Lawson's having a pretty magnificent qualifying right now. He's up in 5th. Teammate Hadjar down in 8th at the moment, but personal best for the Frenchman currently on a lap. Lando Norris is sitting pretty though with 30 seconds on the clock in that provisional pole, looking for his 7th pole of the season is Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri though half a second back in second, and Piastri's not going to do it. He might get one final lap if he crosses the line in time, but I don't think he will. Further back, George Russell down in 7th, going again. Hadjar down in 8th. This is the sound of Liam Lawson as T-Weight, the Kiwi racing driver, also fighting for his seat in Formula One. Was in a Red Bull for the first 2 races of the season. Demoted. In place went Yuki Tsunoda, but Tsunoda out of this session. Down in 19th. Lawson up to 3rd. A rocket ship despite losing time in that final sector, but it's Carlos Sainz with a mighty final sector. Takes the checkered flag, which counts down to 0, puts him in provisional pole. Verstappen immediately snatches it away. But is the writing on the wall? Because Lando Norris is coming. Lando Norris is flying through the first sector. Fastest of anybody is the British racing driver, who's sitting pretty at the top of the championship and looking to clinch it as quickly as he can. He can't do it this weekend, but if it keeps going like this, it will only be a matter of time. Smashes the middle sector time as well. He's almost a second up on Max Verstappen. Lando Norris is flying. We've got a yellow flag out on track though. Will this affect Lando Norris? We'll see. Oscar Piastri is out there as well, but Oscar Piastri not quite doing enough. First sector was okay, middle sector not so much. Another yellow flag out on track. Someone's run wide. Gasly's not going to improve. He's gone into the pits. Alonso takes the checkered flag in 7th. Lawson's been knocked down to 6th. Russell, better result from him, gets himself up into 4th, but it's not going to be enough to challenge for pole. It's going the way of Lando Norris, who takes pole position for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. To the applause of the McLaren garage, it's Norris on pole. Verstappen 2nd.
He caused that yellow flag. It was Oscar Piastri. He had a really bad middle sector, and he's going to start. Let's have a look. Hadjar, no, he's not really making any improvements, so he's going to start in 5th place.
A second adrift at the end, but did Piastri make a mistake while flying? He had a decent sector 1, but it wasn't going to be mighty from Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris continues to show his form. What a turnaround we've seen this season. When it all looked like it was going Oscar Piastri's way, Lando Norris renewed, reinvigorated, 24 points adrift or ahead at the top of the title, takes pole in Las Vegas ahead of Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz up in 3rd, Russell 4th, Piastri 5th. Good qualifying from Liam Lawson up in 6th, ahead of Alonso. Hadjar 8th, Charles Leclerc only 9th.
It's pole.
Oh, no one else got a lap or what?
No, there was a yellow flag behind you as well.
I think looking at the sector times, Harry, that yellow was also caused by Charles Leclerc. So, yeah, he seemed quite surprised there. Look at how dirty the cars are. We've talked about it before, how dirty the track is. It looks like Max Verstappen's, well, don't know where he's been driving. Well, around Las Vegas, but we don't often see that. It just shows how treacherous these conditions are as well. But I think Max will be fairly happy with that.
I think he will. 0.3 adrift from Norris in second. Gasly rounded out the top 10, by the way, but pretty remarkable from Alpine. And Gasly, who had a pretty good Sao Paulo, managed to get a point from the sprint and a point from the Grand Prix, considering Alpine have turned off the taps when it comes to upgrades for quite some time now with a pretty poor performing car. Gasly extracting the most, and something about Vegas going very well indeed for the Frenchman. But it's going better for Lando Norris, who peels into the pit lane, lines up in that P1 position ahead of Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz with a brilliant effort in third, but for Norris, who is about to be congratulated by his old teammate, his old friend, and very much current rival, Carlos Sainz, gives him a pat on the helmet as Norris then emerges from the cockpit of his Formula One car with a 7th pole of the season, ties with Max Verstappen, and gets a 3rd consecutive pole position. In fact, the last 7 Grand Prix in Formula One have been won from pole. It's one short of a record set back in 1976. Lando Norris, not sure he's thinking quite about that, but he's extracting the maximum, and along with his 7th pole of the season, it makes it 16 career pole positions. He's firing on all cylinders right now, isn't he, Alice?
He is. He's done everything correct. His teammate's down in 5th place. But I just want to say a shout out to Carlos Sainz. He's fractions of a second off Verstappen. Very, very small margin. 500ths if you want to be precise. And ahead of George Russell in the Mercedes. He's qualified P2 here in the last 2 Las Vegas Grand Prix. We're just seeing a replay. It was Charles Leclerc that caused one of the yellow flags.
Turn 14 again.
So that is turn 14, and I'm pretty sure maybe actually Piastri was hindered there, and that's why he did such a slow middle sector.
So it was actually turn 12 as they're just about to go onto the strip, and Piastri had to get out of the way and bail out of it because he had a Racing Bulls car on his inside, turned in. They would have made contact. Then Piastri had to go into the runoff area and do a quick UE and back onto the track.
So I wonder which Racing Bulls that was. Might be, it's not come up, has it, under investigation, but certainly impeded by the looks of it, Oscar Piastri. But a great job by Sainz. P3 here last year as well.
Yeah, really good work from Sainz. Verstappen up there as usual in second. Never taken pole in Las Vegas, though, in 3 attempts. But we'll start on the front row. And, well, pole to turn 1. 112 metres before you stamp on the brakes, in dry conditions at least. The 2nd shortest run of the year. And we know Max Verstappen likes a bold and aggressive move. Something Lando Norris will have to bear in mind when they head down to turn 1 and the hairpin for the first of 50 laps tomorrow for Sunday's Grand Prix, which you can hear in full on 5 Live. Build up from 3:30 ahead of lights out at 4 o'clock in the morning. But let's hear from our qualifiers with James Hinchcliffe.
Joined here by, so far, your front row, Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. We see Carlos Sainz making his way over in a little bit. Lando, obviously we'll start with you. Congratulations on the pole position. Look, great final lap, first 2 sectors. Big moment coming out of 14 on the last lap there. Were you worried you'd given away too much time, or did you think you still had it?
Yeah. Boy, it was stressful as hell. I mean, I didn't know no one else was going to get a lap after me, so I knew I felt like the first 2 sectors were good. It's so slippery out there, like as soon as you hit the curb a little bit wrong, like I did, you snap one way, you lose the car the other way, close to hitting the wall. But good enough for P1 today. So yeah, not the nicest of conditions, but I'm happy it stopped raining and we could get a good qualifying on.
Lando, it's been a tough weekend because it seems like no 2 sessions have been the same conditions-wise, worst one being saved for qualifying. So how hard is it for you to get a grip on the car, on the track, when no 2 sessions seem to be the same?
I mean, you need a good car to do it, first of all. So, the team did a good job. To be honest, I was having a little nap before quali. and I was expecting it to be dry, and I woke up and I saw it was raining, and I thought, oh crap, this is not going to go well. But yeah, it's just, no one's driven around here in the rain before. It's difficult to know what to expect, and like after Q1, it was pretty, like every corner you feel like you could crash, and it could easily be over. So one step at a time. Q1, Q2, Q3, all tough. So more rewarding a day like this, because it was a tricky one.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll come back to you in a sec. Max, we'll go to you. P2 for tomorrow. Difficult conditions out there, but Max, you seem to love driving in these mixed conditions, these difficult conditions. Was it hard out there, or were you having too much fun to worry about how tough it was?
It was really, really slippery out there. It's already slippery in the dry, but in the wet, yeah, it's not fun, I can tell you that. I mean, I like to drive in the wet. This felt more like driving on ice. So it took a long time to get the tires to work a little bit. I do feel that maybe we're a little bit more competitive on the extreme tire. But track is improving, so you have to move on to the Inter. And I struggled a lot just to have any kind of grip. And final lap, of course, you risk a little bit more, but it was still, of course, by far not enough to fight for first. But still to be on the front row, I think is good for us. I mean, the lap felt all right. It's just super difficult out there to get all the braking zones right and be on the limit of the tires as well. But we did it, so excited for tomorrow. I hope the inside is okay in terms of grip, but we'll see. We'll see.
Now go back to Q1 when it was as wet as it was for the whole session. We see gapping a lot in Formula One qualifying to try to get some clean air, but it looked like gapping was necessary for visibility. How tough was the visibility at the start of this qualifying?
Yeah, the visibility was also very tough. With these cars as well, with the ground effect there, there's a lot of weight that gets kicked up from the floor. So when it rains, there's a lot of water and spray, and that's why you always want at least like 8 seconds. And I know it's a lot.
8 seconds?
Yeah, otherwise you don't really see what's happening in front of you.
All right, well, you got it done. P2 tomorrow. Good luck for that. Congratulations. Carlos Sainz, how about that? P3, big cheer from the crowd here. Look, we knew that this was a track Williams could potentially be quick at. Were you expecting to have this kind of pace in the wet, though?
I mean, I'm always optimistic. I always, dream is for free, and I always try and think about myself doing well. This track, maybe we suited our car in the dry, and in the wet in FP3, we didn't look very promising, but we did a few changes to the car that I think helped on the wet, and that allowed me to from the first lap of Q1, every time I was finishing the lap, I was P1, P1, P1. On next wet, I was really, really quick. On Inter, I knew the others maybe would catch up a bit, but happy with P3.
So, racing in Las Vegas, it's such a cool scene, such a cool vibe. You got a lot of fans here up in the stands. Just what's it like coming back here every year? I know you like racing here. Maybe a word for the fans.
Yeah, a bit like in Austin, massive cheer from the US fans for me every time. I don't know how to thank them, because every time I come to the US, I feel a massive support from everyone. So yeah, thanks a lot, truly. I think the US fans love a bit of an underdog, no? Yeah. An underdog fight, and I think they see myself with Williams as an underdog, but also as a coming project. We're becoming stronger every race, every lap that we do together, and it's great to see people behind us supporting us. And yeah, would have loved to give them pole today, because that would have been a massive cheer then, but we were just not quite there.
Well, hey, you found the podium once already this year. Let's see if you can do it again tomorrow. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Lando, let's come back to you real quick. We talked about how no two sessions have been the same. The race probably is going to be different again. Hopefully it's dry. Is there anything that you've learned this weekend that you can apply to tomorrow, or is it sort of just shooting from the hip?
Shoot from the hip, yeah. I've never said it before in my life, but the pace has been good all weekend. I think it was going to be good in the dry. I honestly didn't expect to be as good as I was then in the wet, so very happy with that. But there's a lot of unknowns tomorrow. No one's really done much high fuel running. No one's really done more than like 10 lap stints, so I'm sure it's going to be an interesting race, especially with Max up there, with Carlos as well. Nice to see him up on the top three. So hopefully we can have a good race tomorrow, and everyone can enjoy it.
All right, well, best of luck. That is your top three: Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, and Carlos Sainz.
James Hinchcliffe speaking to the top three indeed. Norris, Verstappen and Sainz. Russell was fourth ahead of Piastri, Lawson, Alonso, Hadjar, Leclerc and Pierre Gasly, the top 10. Just worth bearing in mind that Carlos Sainz is under investigation with the stewards for allegedly rejoining unsafely in Q1. So you can keep an eye on the BBC Sport website for any updates on that that come through. But that is your top three. Lando Norris on pole position ahead of 50 laps around the Las Vegas Strip circuit, ahead of round 22 of the Formula One World Championship. You can join us for it. Build up from 3:30 in the morning. We're going to be on BBC Radio 5 Live. Lights out from 4 o'clock in the morning. We're going to go away now and analyse everything we've just seen, and then you can hear that on the Checkered Flag podcast on BBC Sounds. So make sure you're subscribed and have all the various notifications turned on. But my thanks to Rosanna, to Andrew, to Alice. We will see you for the Grand Prix live on 5 Live. Lights out at 4 o'clock in the morning. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.